What's up, guys, and welcome back to Paint Bravely, a podcast where you can find a little bit of encouragement, discover new ways to make your hobby more fun, and most importantly, learn to paint bravely. Or at least we hope every time that we do this podcast that you are sitting down and painting and, doing the best you can. So this week we're just going to kind of get into a few things that we've been doing, go over some pretty interesting topics that we've selected from the audience. I think we've got some pretty good ones this week. But first things first, Brent, what have you been up to in the last few weeks?
All right, I got a few things here. I get ready for this every time, and I am ready. So, all right, we're gonna start a little bit serious. I took my cats to the vet yesterday, but they're fine. But it got me thinking. So, I made an appointment because there was a lump on Gordon's neck, and you got to get that checked out. So, went in there like, "Doc, tell me it's not cancer. And he said, "It's not cancer. He's fine. It's like a weird fat deposit. He's fine." But that got me thinking about, internet famous pets. Those cats are always wandering around in my Goobertown Hobbies YouTube channel. And, some of the viewers are definitely more attached to those cats than they are to me, which, hey, that's fine. We got a 3-person, 3-cat team, making things work over there. Mm-hmm. But, even where I'm sitting recording this right now, behind me on the wall, I have 2 poorly painted pictures of cats. You got Snuffles and Gordon, their portraits sitting up there behind me. And, it made me think if either one of these guys, dies young, hopefully not. Like, I love those little buggers, but what would that do to the channel? Would I have to remove the portrait behind me or put little X's over the eyes of one of them, or or would there just be an episode? For those of you listening in, Gordon just jumped up on the table and he is perfectly fine and perfectly in frame right now. But what would happen? Would there just be 10 episodes in a row where no Gordon was wandering through the screen, and then some white cat nobody had ever seen before wanders across the shot, and just a flurry of comments? But
there would be too. People would be wondering if they didn't see him.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They'd start to ask.
Yeah, folks ask after 1 or 2 episodes without any Gordon or Snuffles
don't
sightings.
See him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, your famous internet animals like Grumpy Cat that died. It was all over the news.
Right.
And that company, whatever, or I guess company, I don't know what you'd call it, Meme Factory.
Yeah.
They're gone now.
Yeah, they probably incorporated that cat for tax reasons, yeah.
Right. Got insurance on it and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. The insurance payoff. Maybe they didn't get insurance on that cat, but no, I looked into Grumpy Cat, and they were only 7 years old when they passed away. And,
oh, really?
That's sad because it was a cute cat, but also, man, that retirement plan just right out the window, right?
Right.
I don't know if you would have gotten a full 7 or 8 more years of memes out of the cat, but a couple at least, right?
I mean, he seemed pretty one note. I feel like 3 or 4 angles of that cat, you would have been all right.
Yeah, but you partner with somebody who makes little cat costumes or something, or I mean, even you go visit Black Magic Craft and set them up behind a cool castle or something. You can do stuff with that cat. Just got to be creative.
Yeah, the collab opportunities with that cat. Maybe you should be doing that. Next time you travel, take your cat, little cat carrier, and then randomly in the middle of the video, there's Gordon jumping up on some terrain piece.
Oh man, that would be pretty good.
That would be good.
That, or I need to buy a green screen and just,
sure.
Yeah,
just
set that
assets.
Up behind my cat tree, set a green screen up behind me right now.
Yeah. Have you thought about putting a cat tree in a more camera available space?
I haven't given it too much serious thought, but that's an idea right there.
Yeah.
I've mentioned before that my main painting desk, I do have a cat tree to the side, which encourages the cats to be near me and be happy with that, but not be in the paints and on the desk, No, that's an idea. That's an idea. The pillow on the shelf behind me is, a step in that direction. Gets the cat to chill out in one spot, be happy that it's near me, and not be constantly in the way.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know what I was gonna say.
So, Casey, what time for an update from you? Well, we can alternate here. I got a couple of small ones. So, what's next from you?
Ooh, well, I guess a good one is I'm working on some Spider-Man minis, like from the early 80s all the way up to some of the new stuff. That's kind of what I've got going on right now. And it's pretty cool to see, this transformation from like the TSR days, when Dungeons and Dragons minis were being made. I guess they also got the license for Marvel, and they did a whole bunch of Spider-Man minis, and they're like the size of a dime.
Interesting.
And to see that
I'm sorry,
evolution.
What's TSR? That's not it's not coming to mind right away.
The company that made Dungeons and Dragons, right? They're the ones who commissioned Citadel. Speaking of Dungeons and Dragons, Brent and I have been playing D&D lately. That's a thing we could talk about.
Oh, you're going to use that as your update? Okay, yeah.
Brent, you going to use that as your update?
Our update. Okay,
it's our update.
Yeah, we have an hour update. Yeah,
maybe we should add that in.
That's fine. That's fine. No, you can use it as your update. But yes, we have been playing D&D. We've got an online game going with a combination of Discord and Roll20. Roll20's got the nice maps and stuff, and Discord has an audio chat that actually works pretty well. And with those combined,
with their powers combined, we're able to actually play a game with people.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, it's been a long time since I've played D&D, and I've been wanting to get back in. Like, I've almost jumped back in a few times with a few different groups, but everybody always says like how hard it is to get a D&D group together that continually, stays together. And I've definitely felt that over the years. Like, done one game, where everybody shows up and, we do character creation and then never talk to each other again,
Oh, that quickly.
And,
okay.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like, it's always been like that, because I've tried several times and it's just always ended up failing. And I'm just like, well, I guess it's just not for me. I'm not going to end up playing this game ever again. But this time it seems promising. I'm pretty happy with it so far, and excited to keep going and getting a little deeper into it. It's a little awkward over, chat online, but, like anything, any video game that you play online, I guess, MMOs, you get used to chatting back and forth and figuring things out and not talking over each other.
Yeah, the voice chat isn't that bad, especially when the video chat is working at the same time. Like, all that combined, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
surprisingly good. So, my history a little bit. I've played maybe 10 sessions of actual D&D in my life. Most of those were kind of a edition 3.5 hybrid of some kind, and yeah, I had a situation where my dungeon master just decided to disband the group and reform a subset of the group as a vampire game.
Okay.
Yeah, so the topic of like drama in D&D groups is a kind of a favored little hobby of mine to read up on. I love hearing about other people's drama in that regard, because you're getting a bunch of nerds together to do something cooperative and try to have fun together, but there are lots of ways for that to break down. And for one of my old groups, it was most commonly that one or two people would cancel at the last minute, and it would break down that way.
Yeah.
I think the dungeon master like also didn't like the way a few people played their characters. But one day, you know, we were all going to come over to my apartment to play, and you know, a couple of people bowed out like they did kind of frequently, and the dungeon master just says, "Okay, this was the excuse I was looking for. I am kicking them out of the group. This is no longer a Dungeons and Dragons group. We are playing." This cat just keeps wandering by. Sorry about the clunks and the purrs and the scratching.
Don't apologize, Brent. Don't apologize.
Yeah, this is what you get. But yeah, my dungeon master just said, "Sorry guys, you're still my friends, but you are no longer in the group, and we're not even playing D&D anymore, so don't worry about it. But this is now a Vampire Dark Age group." And so there was a session where, you know, Dave and most of the group came over to my house, and I thought we were going to be playing D&D that day, but instead they just read to me like the clan histories from all 13 vampire clans. I was just sitting there like,
pick one.
I'm into
That's
it now.
Not what you signed up for.
Yeah, this day took a turn.
Right.
A is for a Semite. Now the Semite clan, like from, and then try to think. I don't know if I could name all 13 vampire clans, but that's a lot of the letters of the alphabet. You got a Semite, you got Bruja, you got it. Anyway.
I mean, good for you for still remembering some of it.
No, we're still playing, actually. So
so it's not horrible. Okay,
yeah.
Nice.
So talking
that's a
about
good end of that story.
So that part of it wasn't horrible. It was a decisive move by the GM to change from the dungeon master to the storyteller, changing from Dungeons and Dragons to vampires. But he made that decisive decision. This group is not working out. We're making some changes. We're making them today, and this group is going to work out. And so we had a couple of pretty good years of that. Still sporadic games, but a couple of pretty good years. And then everyone moved to different states, and then we switched to online, and that's actually been working out okay.
I mean, that's not terrible at all.
Yeah, but
I would have thought that story would have ended it a completely different way. Like, you're like, I didn't sign up for this. Like, I'm kicking you all out of this group. I'm gonna be by myself
I was
now.
pretty skeptical at first, and I was not one of the people kicked out, which is nice. But
That's always good.
so we normally had the games at my apartment anyway, so that might have been part of it. But
Right, I can see that. They're like, well, he does these things, but you know, he's got snacks and a place.
Yeah, we need the following people. Yeah. But yeah, so you and I are in a Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition game online. We don't need to name names, but it's actually a group of YouTube folk playing the game, and for a lot of us, we have not played much Dungeons and Dragons recently. A few people have, and it's been fun so far. Hopefully that group keeps going, but you never can tell.
Right, you can't tell. I mean, I really hope that it does, because it's always been one of those things that's in the back of my mind, you know. Like, I've thought about just going to a game store and trying to find a group of, you know, just random strangers, which super hit or miss, especially in a hobby shop. But I don't know, it's just one of those things I've been itching to do for a long time, and it's kind of awesome that, you know, I don't know, just going through all the YouTube stuff has led to this, and it's just kind of an awesome thing.
Yeah, the YouTube thing, you're just immersed in nerd culture, and if you're painting minis, Dungeons and Dragons people paint minis, you get connected to the right folks, and it's a good way to make friends. Yeah. But yeah, just before the pandemic and the quarantine, actually, I had played 2 sessions of D&D locally at a game store, and then, you know, all this hit and I stopped going to the game store, and actually they kept going with the campaign, but for whatever reason I was just like, nope. So that one's on me. these things happen.
Did they recognize you when you came in and they're like, of course you can join this group?
No, actually, that was kind of funny when I do you get recognized at game stores, or do you not? No one's been leaving the house a lot recently, but
well, yeah, not recently. Like, yeah, before the quarantine, like I knew that there were a few people who did the last time I went in to pick up some paints. But they didn't say anything. But
Okay.
you know, you get that look.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been recognized for being in a band more often than that. Just, you know, being in the town I'm in. Yeah, which is weird, being in like a Walmart or something, and somebody's yelling at you on the other side of the aisle, you know?
Yeah, you're not expecting it when you're just walking around Walmart. Unless you're in like the Magic the Gathering section of Walmart. Like if you're
Right,
if you're
yeah.
poking around through Fat Packs, yeah, maybe then, but
Yeah, it's a small selection in Walmart where, you know, those people gather.
yeah, you got that corner right near the registers. You got your Fat Packs. You got your deck builder kits. You got your Planeswalker decks. Like, yeah. But outside of that, yeah, it can be pretty disarming to get recognized at Walmart. That has never happened to me, but I'm not in a band, so there you go.
Yeah, well, I'd say that your reach as an internet personality is further than my band's. So, you know, I think that there's a solid chance that someone could genuinely recognize you in just a department store.
Well, there's the thought.
Now you're going to start ordering all your groceries online.
Oh, yeah,
Stay
now
inside.
I'm going to start ordering all my groceries online. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so anyway, for this group that I had just before the pandemic at that game store, some of the like mini game players, you know, some of the war game players recognized me. But you know, I sat down to play a game of D&D and nobody recognized me. Which that's the normal state of things for humans, is that nobody recognizes you. But the reason that was a little bit funny is that one of the other players was using as his player character an Artisan Guild model, a 3D printed dwarf from Artisan Guild, which like I had. Some of my videos have been about Artisan Guild, and Artisan Guild has made a figure of me.
Right.
And actually, in a real D-bag move, that game, I made my character. The dungeon master was saying, like, just make a warrior. If you haven't played much D&D recently, if you haven't played any 5th edition, just make a warrior. Do whatever you want to do. And it turns out that an Artisan Guild model that they sculpted with like my face and hair was actually a perfect setup warrior. A morning star, 2 throwing axes on the belt, and a shield, and some flowing hair, and that is a perfect level 1 5th edition warrior. And so,
did you bring that in?
Yes,
Tell me you brought that in.
That's the story here. In a classic D-bag move, I painted one of those up in a couple hours, brought them into the D&D game at the store, and so I painted up in like dark colors and stuff. Like it was like looking kind of evil, actually, like a lot of dark reds and stuff. But I popped this model down of me on the game mat. Nobody notices.
Nobody says
nobody. A few people were like, "Oh, where'd you get that mini?" Like, "Oh, it's a 3D print from Artisan Guild." And this other guy's like, "Yeah, I really like Artisan Guild. Mine's from Artisan Guild too. I've got this dwarf here. He's a warrior." And I'm like, "Yeah, I really like Artisan Guild too. It's pretty cool, huh? Yeah." And like, "Oh, nice paint job on there. Yeah, cool. Yeah. All right. Okay, so your party meets at the tavern." Like,
right.
yeah.
It's always a little bit of hoping that someone's gonna say something, just so that you can be like, "Yeah, look, isn't this cool?" I mean,
Well, no,
come on, you got a miniature that looks like you, and you're playing it in a D&D game. Like, there's a story there. You gotta share that.
no,
Did you at least
I'm
paint?
quiet about it. Like,
Yeah.
it's a. it's a bit of a strange feeling. I mean, it's not a bad feeling, but if someone does recognize you're like, oh, hey, you make those videos. I like your videos. Like, hey, nice to meet you.
Right.
Like, and so it's a little bit of a weird feeling. So I'm not like trying to make that happen every time. Like if they just don't recognize me, that's fine too. Let's play a game of D&D.
Right. Don't you think though?
But no, I wasn't gonna do like you don't
awkward.
recognize the figure. Like, have you seen Goobertown Hobbies? No,
I'm not saying to say that. No, I'm just saying like if that group was still a thing and you've been playing for a while, and then somebody asks you about the figure. Oh, I want to go check out some Artisan Guild stuff, and they see your ass on there. They're gonna be like, dude, what the hell? It just seems like at some point that information should come to light. Not for any egotistical, selfish reasons or anything, but just for lack of awkwardness later.
Yeah, that's like you forgot the name of the guy across from you is Paul, but it's too late to like ask them what their name is again. Like, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, one of those guys is going to see something at some point and just be like, why didn't he say anything? It's going to be super awkward next time you go.
That's all right. Yeah, so anyway, we're playing D&D. It's fun. We've had a session now. We're hoping that continues. By the time this episode releases, we might have had 2 sessions, maybe 3. We'll see. Let's go nuts. But
yeah. Theoretically, that should be happening pretty soon. So.
Yeah. And as a final point, if you didn't know, Google has a very nice dice rolling app. You just type into Google roll, 5d8. There you go. And it pop right up. They make the little rolling animation.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Tips and tricks,
cool.
dude. Yep. Tips and tricks. So if you're doing all theater of the mind and Roll20 is just not working for you, do it on Google. Or, Discord has a dice rolling app too. But there's options.
Sense.
Yeah, role-playing over the internet is not really difficult at all. Like if you find the right group of people, it's not so bad at all.
Well, yeah, so we've been doing that. I guess I'll circle back to the TSR model. Yeah, I just painted a new Venom. Yeah, that was pretty great. And that'll be for a video that's coming out way later. And it's part of a commission. And kind of like I've been doing commissions for a while now, and this is kind of like the last. I mean, it's going to be the last one that I'm going to do. I'm done. I'm quitting.
Well, we appreciate your service, and we wish you the best of luck in the future.
Yeah. I just can't. I can't handle the ups and downs anymore, man.
Yeah, there's something to be said about painting for yourself and painting only things that you want to paint. And I know you've been selling things on eBay, like painting what you want to paint and then just reselling them on eBay. And I assume the money is not as good as, doing an hourly rate for a commission or whatever, but you get to paint what you want to paint, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'm definitely moving in that direction. I'm just going to put the models up on eBay. Because it's a lot more interactive with people who already want the models. They see them, they want them, and normally I just keep them and they go, oh, okay. Every so often I get a message just like, hey, are you interested in selling that model from that video? And usually it's like, no, not really. I didn't really think about it, but putting them up on eBay, it's not as good of a return on some of the models as if I had been commissioned to paint it. But yeah, I got to paint what I wanted, how I wanted it, and then, throw it up on eBay, and I get money that then goes back into buying more models.
Sure.
So I think that's a much better trade, and I don't have to do the work to quote 50 people to get, 2 commissions in a month.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm definitely quitting commission painting.
Okay. Well, end of an era.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah?
It's been a while, a couple years now. Yeah, not sad at all.
I'm going to change the topic of conversation here, Casey. I got a new power strip, and I literally wrote this down on our show notes because
Sweet.
I got a good power strip. So ordinarily, you're plugging in your lights for your painting desk, and maybe you've got a paint mixer or a Dremel tool, or maybe you've got a laptop, a cell phone charger, a laptop charger, to keep yourself entertained while you're there. And you got a 6-prong outlet, but every single one of your plugs is giant, and you can plug in about 2 things to your 6. Yeah. So I've got a power strip that's what all power strips should be. It's 10 prongs, it's about 30 inches long, and the outlets are all turned 90 degrees, and there is enough room so that you can plug any plug into any one of those sockets, and you can actually plug in the number of devices that the power strip says you can. So, and I got a little bit heated there, but this is a serious
I feel
point.
you, man.
Like,
yeah,
I mounted a shop power strip to my painting table, and it is one of the best things that I've done in a long time. My LED lights, I have 2 nice LED lights that I use for painting, and both of those have, their power brick or whatever, their transformers and their converters, and those are all in the plug. They don't have that, in the light unit or along the length of the cord. It's just right there in the plug. So you can you can plug in 2 of those lamps to a 6-prong outlet, unless you get a sweet shop outlet. Now I've got my lights, my cameras, my microphone. I've got just everything plugged into this thing. And it's the little things in life,
awesome.
Casey. It's the little things.
I know.
Yeah.
It's almost as good as Black Poster Board. And I'm not exaggerating. That's
2020
fantastic.
has not been a complete waste. We're making advances over here. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If anybody doesn't understand what this is, like the floor power strips that you would plug your computer into or whatever it is, usually it's tucked away behind your couch or something so that you can plug your laptop in, and you can only ever fit like 2 things on them because they're all, unless they're the 2-prong standard plugs, which nothing is anymore.
Nothing is.
Like that power strip you just spent $20 on is like no better than the wall socket that you already had.
That's
like
a
you
really
just
good
get
point.
that 3 feet of room. Like that little extra extended cord portion is what you're paying for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in this case, swivelable, right? They swivel.
They
or
actually
is it just
don't.
at 90
They are
degrees?
permanently turned 90 degrees.
Okay.
And there's a good 4 inches between the at least 4 or 6. I don't know. There's a good amount of space between each plug, and it's nice. It's nice. Few inches.
Yes.
And I can plug those big beefy plugs in right next to each other. There's plenty of room between them. You're not on those 6 plug power strips. There's also that trick of like, for the really big plugs, you have to bend the cord to be able to squeeze one more thing to get plugged in there. That can't be good for it.
Not safe. Yeah. Not safe at all. Like now you're really hoping that it's going to trip if something actually happens, and do its job.
Yeah, you can maybe you can plug in like 2 or 3 things, plus you can plug in one more power strip so that you can plug in the rest of the stuff that you need to plug in. So we got around that entirely. I got a shop power strip, 10 sockets, can plug anything I want in there, just mounted to the side of my desk here, and which also gets a lot of cables off of the ground, which is nice. I think next up, 2 weeks from now, I might be talking about like a wire hanging cord organization basket. Might be talking about little twist ties and rubber bands. And look, we don't need to tarry on this, but
For sure.
we love getting our desk set up right. And I know that you're working on a studio right now, Casey. Have you considered your electricals?
A little bit, yeah. So I've got some in the ceiling for my lights. So all my cords are actually attached to a rack on the ceiling, and the lights are clamped on. So there aren't tripods on the floor for any of my lights at this point. And that's as far as I've gotten so far, and the rest is going to be running power. I did buy those super sweet like wall track things for cabling. So yeah, I'm gonna have some fancy, cable organization on the wall if I need anything to run from one area to another and have it all hidden. So I've got enough to go up and around doors if I have to, or across the ceiling or whatever it is, but all this stuff's going to be as hidden as possible. I want to make it clean, because right now I'm not in I got cords running all around me right now in my 5x5 closet. Because, the power cord's just on the other side of the door. It's running under the door and like around my desk. Yeah. And it's just it's not good. It's dangerous.
Yeah, that is dangerous.
Yeah. So far, so good.
Yeah. Well, your recent videos for the eBay Miniature Rescues channel have had your new studio set up when you're doing your talking head stuff. And it's looking nice. It's obviously a bigger space where you have the luxury of not having a towering pile of boxes immediately behind you. You've got a nice display case back there. You said you're going to have a logo on the wall. It looks great.
I'm pretty excited, man. It's so close to being done. Like, I feel like I continually keep teasing this idea that, check it out, this new space. I'm doing all this stuff. And it's like, I did start using it on the channel a little bit, and like that feels pretty good. But then, I can't really give a tour yet because it's just not there.
Yeah, the most recent video was pretty funny because it was a really nice studio, and you start talking, and just like the little bit of weight of your elbows on the table, like the table that you're using in your studio right now, just started wobbling all over the place.
I mean, I think you may be exaggerating that a little bit. Like, nobody else noticed.
Well, now they're going to. So.
Now they're going to, yeah. They are, too. They're going to read your comment, and they're going to watch that again, which I guess I should thank you for the extra views that's going to give me.
Yeah, everybody go rewatch the night video, and then that's going to be terrible for your retention time, though, because that table's mostly wobbling in the beginning, but I think it wobbles a few times throughout the video, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I recorded all the talking head stuff in one go, and then just, intercut the video, so it's all the same time. I'm sure it's shaking. Like, it's a super cheap table that was out of my wife's old office space, and it just happens to, like, look pretty nice. It's like this dark wood. It's got a little bit of brown in it, but, it's kind of like stained black. I mean, it's probably just cheap garbage stuff, but, on camera, it looks all right. It's definitely not the permanent desk that I want, but it's what I have, and I'm going to use what I have.
Yeah. Sorry, I shouldn't have made fun of you like that. I shouldn't have made fun of you and your desk. That was wrong of me, and I apologize. But your studio actually is starting to look pretty good, and we're all excited.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay. So I have one more update here, or conversation starter on my end. So recently, and by the time the podcast goes up, the video will be up, but I did another endurance painting thing, and I'd done 2 24-hour painting sessions before.
Yeah.
And this time, Scott from the Miniac channel challenged me to do something like that as part of a collaboration, except this time there's no time limit. So he said, you have, sit down to paint for as long as you want. And some of our listeners will know that Scott's like a pretty competitive guy, and that fuels him and motivates him and helps him to be the artist that he is. But when, he knows that I've done the 24-hour thing before. He knows that that's possible. And he says, like, okay, this time just as long as you can. And the format of the project was kind of, we each had a little army to paint. and just see how much you can get done before you go to sleep. I mean, the rules weren't super clear when we set them up, but it was, turn on the camera and paint until you can't really paint anymore. And we'll see who wins somehow.
Like it's a contest.
Yeah,
I mean,
or a challenge or
younger.
a curse or... Yeah, so...
Yeah, curse, yeah.
And Scott had been talking about painting some vampires for a while. He had a vampire army that he made for himself, and he's had a video about doing conversions, and he's talked about it on Trapped Under Plastic as well. And he doesn't like to batch paint, and so he kind of needed a drive to actually get this done. So competition all at once, just knock it out. It's going to be painful, but let's get it done. That was the idea.
I mean, it's a good motivation.
Right.
Because you're making content at the same time as doing something you actually want to do. I mean, that's probably the
want
best
to
way
have
do
done.
that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Or want to have done, or hopefully will be done by the end.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things about YouTube is finding the tricky little ways to get done what you want to get done while making it interesting for others to watch, and possibly favorable to the algorithm by making it a challenge or competition or
right.
extreme endurance sports. So I had, and I think we've talked about it on the podcast before, but I had 30 Space Marines Blood Angels for a charity raffle. And the due date for sending those off is literally today, and they're not quite done, but they will be. They're looking pretty good, and they'll be looking even better before I send them off.
Nice.
Not today, but in a couple of days. But so Scott's like, hey, do you want to do this crazy thing? I'm like, well, I always have too many models to paint, or I always have a force I want to paint. This time is like, okay, I actually need to be cranking out Blood Angels right now. So.
Right, yeah. So
all right, Scott, let's do this. All right, let's do this, yeah. So I got set up, and this was a thing where, pretty much the whole day before, I was making sure everything was assembled and no mold lines. I assemble slow, so it actually took me days to assemble these, but, the whole day before I was doing final checks to make sure everything was good to go, had the camera set up, knew what my paint scheme was going to be, all that. Got as much sleep as I could, and then about 10 a.m. the next day, pressed record, set up the competition, pressed start on my giant clock that I have behind me sometimes. And I made it 29 hours, and
that's pretty good, man.
That's not bad. So it was a couple hours to get using my airbrush to get the base coat down, black primer, Mephiston red on top, blood red from coat to arms on top of that, and then from underneath I came in with some of that Payne's Gray ink and squirted in shadows with that, and that's a good technique.
Yeah, I like that for Space Marines.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard about that from independent characters. I think they've talked about that a few times of, Justin Kiefer just talking about that Payne's Gray. Like, he loves it. I got the impression, but I haven't used it a whole bunch, but it works well on Space Marines. So got the red on there and then just kind of turned them upside down and from underneath squirting some of this ink on. And Payne's Gray is a combination of black and dark blue. So it's blue pigment 13:3 and it's carbon black 7 or carbon black pigment black 7, but it's a really, really dark blue essentially, and it's perfect for shadows, and it works really well with the red Space Marine armor. And so it took about 2 hours to get those 4 coats down, up to the shaded red, and then 20 whatever else hours of really slowly putting in most of the other details.
Right. Did you edge highlight everything?
Not yet, actually. That's the last thing
That's
I'm
the
going to
last. All right. You need another 29 hours and like 4 or 5 real sharp brushes.
Well, you can decide how aggressively you want to edge highlight, but I did go in and pin wash everything. So that was one of the longer steps, was pin washing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, after I got the red and everything airbrushed on, I went through and put on, black for the bolters and for their joints and stuff. Then I went in with silver. Then it was about time for the pin washing step, and that took almost as long as painting on black bolters took.
For sure, yeah.
But it looks really good. So I before I did the pin washing, I did a coat of gloss varnish, and then you just go in there and you're not slap and wash over everything. You're just putting it right in the joints and the cracks and the whatever the weird little runnels and textures are on the armor. But yeah, just put it everywhere where it's obvious you're supposed to put it, and it looks good.
Yeah. What did you use to do the pin wash with?
I used a dark tone from Army Painter.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've tried, we were just talking about oil washes. I've tried oil washes several times, and there's always just a residue that I don't like on the flat areas. You can wash a lot of it off, but there's something's not quite right about it, or at least the way I'm doing it. Or when it's wet, it looks like everything is in the perfect place, and then it dries a little, and it's almost like the pigment moved just out of the cracks to be like...
Right.
I don't know if you've observed this, but it's almost like on the water line of where the wash was, not actually deep in the crack. You're like, what just happened? What?
Yeah. Like if that happens, you pretty much just have to do it again. To intensify that pigment. If there's too much medium, that usually happens. It starts to separate like weirdly. There are alternatives. That's why I was asking though, is, if you went in there like with black ink and did it, or, something crazy that it takes a different amount of time for each kind of product. Right.
And I don't think we actually defined this well, but the ink wash we're talking, or the oil wash we're talking about, is oil paint mixed up with mineral spirits, so like a really, really, really thin oil paint, and it slides really nicely over a gloss varnished mini. And sometimes just slapping that on a mini, like, it looks like it, just really goes into the finest cracks and just really black lines everything really well. But what I was saying is that sometimes in my experience, like when it's wet, it looks amazing. And then as the mineral spirits evaporate, somehow the pigment like moves from where it was when everything was wet. It seems to dry in the wrong place. Now, the nice thing about the oil washes is that you can just come back with mineral spirits and kind of get that pigment to move around again. So nothing is permanent. Everything is fixable there. But I think it's a really interesting technique. I haven't gotten it to behave better than some of the other techniques I like, so I haven't used it a ton. But in this case, so it was a gloss varnish on top of the partially painted Marines, then just going in with, water-based acrylic dark tone from Army Painter.
It's good stuff.
It's good stuff. It used strong tone for a lot of other stuff, but dark tone is perfect for black lining and that sort of application.
Yeah, and especially over that gloss varnish. I'm sure they look pretty good.
Yeah.
So that was like hour 4 in your 29 hours?
No, this brings us like well past 24 hours by the time we're done black lining. Yeah. And then it was... somewhere probably around hour 24 where I'm starting to do like more and more fine details, including, and so this is the point where it's now time on the models to do eyes and then to do decal applications. And so I give myself credit. I got through like 20 pairs of eyes. I got through all the intercessors, and they actually look pretty good. Or like... I mean, it's just putting some bright green on the lens. I wasn't doing lens flares or anything at this point. But for no sleep and for having been painting for the last 24 hours, like, I did actually get 20 pairs of eyes looking all right.
All right.
But then around hour 29, like, my coordination was just gone, and I kept messing up eye after eye after eye, and then coming back in with black to try to fix it and messing that up too. And so hour 29 for me, I called it. I was done.
Yeah.
And of course, this is going to be its whole video on Goobertown Hobbies, but the topic of either binge hobbying or just staying up past 24 hours and what that does to a human.
Right. Yeah.
So for me, like, I got a second wind in there. Like, between hours 20 and 24, I was extremely tired and wanted to quit. And then by hour 29, I was actually feeling pretty good. My hand just wasn't working for painting anymore, so it was okay.
Right.
Like, I need to stop this now, because it's not impressive to sit there for another 10 hours while not accomplishing anything because you can't paint eyes anymore. And also, in the days since, I've been putting on decals, and those old Blood Angel decals from those old transfer sheets do not hold up well. You need to have incredible patience and dexterity to get that those wings with the blood drop in the middle to sit on one of those shoulder pads.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that being a little difficult with zero sleep. Whole day.
Yeah, as it was, it took me probably 8 hours to get all the decals on with proper rest and with the right state of mind.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to go work fast, some decals hold together really well. And that's something I'd like to understand more about. But, like, some decals work nice, while others just disintegrate immediately. And you have to decide whether you're wiping it all off and using another decal, or whether you're sitting there trying to put the 5 pieces back together into something that looks like a symbol for a Space Marine chapter.
I have done that before. Just slowly moving around small pieces, onto whatever it is to try and make it look proper. And in the end, it's just a mess. Yeah, it's usually better to just start over. Or like the Blood Angel symbol. Yeah, I would have almost opted for like a stencil.
Now, actually, I tried that a little bit. So I have some of those stencils here, and I actually had some that looked like pre-cut from a company. And I have some that were like knockoff versions of the Blood Angel chapter. So, like, it's the Blood Angel chapter marking is like a blood drop, and on either side there's wings. So it's blood drop in the middle of wings. And for the decals and for like the most common appearance of that symbol, the wings have like 4 feathers, or I don't know, fingers of the wings or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, they're like little nubs.
Yeah.
Like that represent
there's 4 nubs, and I had this set of stencils, and it has 5 nubs. And for a little while, it's like, wow, they just straight up copied the...
They're like, no, ours has 5. You can count them.
Yeah.
It's not the same. It's not Blood Angels.
Yeah, I mean, it is totally if you don't look closely, but it isn't.
Yeah. It's not, though. Somebody would notice, too.
Yeah, but...
They would call you out on that.
Yeah, and since these minis were for a donation for a raffle, and they're part of a larger army, and so it would be pretty funny if just my part of the army just has a slightly different symbol on everything.
Right.
And another option, I saw your video where you were using the Cricut, and I actually have a Cricut cutter also, and I could have gone and made my own stencils. But also just the curvature of the shoulder pad was just a little more than I wanted to deal with in terms of making sure that a stencil actually stuck down to it.
I did get some good advice for that, though.
Yeah?
Because I was using Cricut stencil, just their branded vinyl, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like that works pretty good. It's not super sticky, so you know you're not tearing paint up, and you can get some real small details, but it's a little bit hard to put on a rounded surface. But somebody told me that, you know, they've been making stencils for years on a Cricut, and they've just been using painter's tape.
Really?
Put painter's tape down on the thing, cut the stencil out, and there you go. Perfect, like, moldable stencil to any surface. I haven't tried it yet, but blew my mind.
Yeah, my mind is being blown right now. That, wow.
Yeah.
There's an idea. But yeah, so like the blood drop. So I kind of experimented with a stencil for the little blood drop marking that goes on some of their knee pads for the squad markings.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And again, the knee pad is this rounded surface. You're trying to put a stencil on top of it. You know, it's not like we have a nice flat Bane blade or Lehman Russ or anything here. It's a just curved shape. And I was having just enough trouble that I was like, okay, we're gonna do decals for everything now. And decals have their own problems for sure, but it just depends what you're in the mood for dealing with.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Normally I'm a pretty patient person. Like if I've had sleep in the past day or two and, you know, I've got an audio book or a podcast, I'm just sitting there. I actually don't mind pushing the left wing around to meet up with the blood drop, to meet up with the right wing. Like, it requires a certain bit of patience and dexterity and willingness to move those stupid disintegrating decals around, but I can normally get them to look like they're supposed to look, so it is what it is. Yeah. We all make choices.
I mean, it's like an art on its own, getting decals to work properly. Like, I've looked up lots of videos, and, you know, they're all basically the same. You know, dip it in the water, let it slide around, then you put it on the thing, and then they cut to magic, and it's done. It's like, that's never, ever how it's gone for me.
Yeah.
And, like, I know there are products out there, the Microset, Microsol, that kind of start to melt them so that then they adhere to rounded surfaces, and then you set them and they harden and whatever.
Yeah.
So but even that stuff, like, it never quite seems to work for what I'm trying to do, and maybe I'm just not doing something right, but
yeah. So I have Microset and Microsol also, and I've found that still, like, the clear parts of the decal, a lot of times you'll end up with, I don't know if it's a bubble or what, but you'll be able to see like this discolored region, whereas like, okay, this was supposed to just be a blank clear part of the decal, you know, in between the wings, the blood drop or whatever, and it is very clear that there's a piece of plastic laying on top of my Space Marine shoulder, and it's not supposed to be there. So what I actually did for this project was I had my X-Acto blade and I cut out each decal right up to the color. So So like for the I'm trying to think, the chapter marking, I guess, for one of the shoulder pads, it's a big yellow blood drop and no wings. And so for the big yellow blood drop, there's kind of the yellow plastic or whatever the paint is on top of the decal plastic. There's the yellow part of the blood drop, and then for like a couple of millimeters for the entire perimeter of the blood drop, there's clear plastic as like the rest of the decal. And I took out my X-Acto blade and cut off all the clear plastic while it's still on the paper decal sheet.
Yeah.
So if anyone tells you advice to like cut notches in your decals so that they fold or curve better, you know, to relieve the tension of a curve, do that while it's still on the decal paper. Yeah. Then take it off.
Not on your model.
Yeah.
It's a terrible idea on your model.
Well, I've certainly tried that, you know, back in the early days where I was like, yeah, I'm going to make an Imperial Fist Marine. This is going to be fun. And then you got that big circle fist thing on one of the shoulder pads. And it's just a big circle that is not curving on that shoulder pad at all. You're like, I've heard First, I gotta cut it, so then you're just going at the shoulder pad with an X-Acto blade, or you have a wet decal on there.
Yellow armor.
You're ruining the paint job. Like, the decal's not gonna do what you want it to do, and yeah. But anyway, so I actually, for this project, cut away all of the clear plastic from these decals, and so like for the other shoulder pad for the wings. I was going in between those nubs, those fingers, those feathers to cut out all the clear plastic in there. And that took a while. And it also, weakened the decals so they're even more brittle and falling apart. But
nubs falling off.
But I didn't get that like obvious clear plastic laying on top of my red paint look. So there's that. Yeah.
I mean, hey, if that's what solves the problem, then yeah. The last one I laid down was a Slanesh mark on a Noise Marine shoulder. Yeah. And I could not get that to look proper.
What does the Slanesh mark look like?
It's like the little half moon connected to like a circle. Like a little line in a circle, some shit. What is it? I don't have the model.
But it's like pretty big compared to the shoulder pad? Or it's got a lot of blank clear plastic? Or...
Yeah, there's a lot of blank clear plastic and kind of some finicky little black lines in between. So, trying to cut that out kind of messed that up. But after I actually got it to lay down properly, I just gloss coated it, and you can't see it at all.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like I painted it on. So, I mean, that's certainly the goal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And
so I don't know if you have any like matte, some kind of varnish might actually.
Yeah, I tried that, and sometimes it helps, and sometimes it doesn't. Like if there's a real obvious discoloration from plastic laying on top of the paint, the varnish just kind of really sets that in place forever. But
right, yeah.
So of interest on the decal talk, I also did print off a couple of my own decals. So I also needed decals for the knee pads. For each squad has a marking on the knee pad. And so I needed little red blood drops. And so I actually had some inkjet decal printer paper.
Right.
And I made myself a Word document that was just row after row of tiny red blood drops in slightly varying sizes, and printed that out. And it actually works pretty well over light colors. So, there were some Marines that had a yellow knee pad with a red blood drop, and that worked pretty well. But the inkjet ink red blood drop over black knee pad did not work at all. Yeah, so that's actually one of the last things I need to do is draw in. Like, I've now given up. I'm just going to get my paintbrush and try to freehand 10 tiny little red blood drops on 10 Marines. So,
well, hey, maybe try that painter's tape deal. Just so you get a consistent blood drop, right? Even if you cut it out with a knife. Just thought.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. That's a thought for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, there are a lot of reasonable ways around this problem. Buying decals and then figuring out how to use them right. You can print your own decals. You can buy stencils if you want to airbrush on the pattern, or you can make your own stencils either with an X-Acto blade or with a Cricut cutter or similar. So
yeah,
just a matter of finding something that works. And it really does depend on, the curvature of the surface and like what the actual shape you're trying to do is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because some shapes seem like no problem. You stick them onto the side of whatever and they fold properly and it's fine. But yeah, those finicky ones like that, those little nubs everywhere, you just never know. So you're just about done with those Space Marines. You don't paint a lot of Space Marines.
No, I don't. And, being in the hobby off and on for 20 years, it's one of those things that my friends were always the ones with the Space Marine army. And I was always like, better paint these Dark Eldar eventually.
Eventually.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed painting the Primaris Marines.
Yeah.
And so the 30 Marines I painted were 20 Primaris Intercessors and 10 of the older tactical Marines, 4 Blood Angels, the ones that just have all kinds of stupid crap hanging off of them.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Every single one of them has blood pendants and more of those wings and just a lot of blood drops on anything. Like, you could pick up any bit from that kit, whether it's the legs or the bolter or the helmet, and immediately say this belongs to a Blood Angels kit. It's too much.
Yeah.
It's too much.
It is overkill. Yeah, there's definitely been a period of time in Games Workshop's history, and I think it's still sort of continuing. I think they're getting better about it, but every 40K model, it's like they want you to know what this is.
Yeah.
100%, and they will way overdo it.
Yeah. I know, Space Wolves definitely had that where they're just being wolf tails tied to everything.
Yeah.
And so like the tactical, I assume they had a tactical Marine kit for Space Wolves, but
I'm sure they
you look
did,
through that, the bolter like could not be used on a regular Marine because there's just like hair stuck to it.
There's just hair all over it.
Yeah.
Like it's a wolf.
And
Space Wolf, obviously.
Dark Angels also, same thing. They've got swords on just absolutely every bit.
Yeah, I mean, you got one on each leg, on each of the shoulder pads, down the helmet, wherever. Like, yeah, it became a little much for all of them.
And it is like it cut down on the ability to do conversions or it would make conversions require much more effort.
A lot of sanding.
But yeah, literally every bit from those kits identified it as, whatever. You could not put a Dark Angel head on a, Blood Angel Marine because it would be very obvious the two did not match up.
Right. Well, they all have those cloaks too.
Yeah.
So it's like, even then, it's different enough.
But those are awesome. Yeah.
Super awesome. Like, I like parts about each piece, right? And then, you got all these other chapters where they don't make anything for, you just got your decals.
Yeah.
So it's very confusing, and I'm sure it's a popularity thing and how much they sell. But it would be nice eventually if Games Workshop just came out with the kits. Here's all your upgrade bits, whatever. Pick your chapter, I mean, I know Forge World does that stuff, but it's not as cost effective, I guess. It's a little expensive to get those.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the status of the upgrade kits is, because like I know some of the chapters do have the upgrade kits for like, here's a couple extra weapons that are a bit special and also different shoulder pads. And even in like the era of Primaris, that's a real thing. I don't know exactly how they're sold, but but yeah, just my overall thought was, even aside from all of the extra shenanigans on those tactical Marines, like I enjoy the sculpt of a Primaris Marine. So I might end up doing more of that. Like they paint up nicely. They're clearly designed to be painted by anyone of any skill level. There's just very clear regions where, okay, you are supposed to shade here, you are supposed to highlight here. All of the details are big enough to be painted. They look good in a variety of paint schemes. I gotta say, yeah, I like the Primaris kit. It has too many bits. Just making a standard Primaris Marine, I think, had 13 bits. So, jeez. Yeah. Leg, front of chest, back of chest, shin pad, arm, weapon, head, shoulder pad, and that's pretty close. It's a lot of parts. Yeah. And so I didn't necessarily enjoy assembling them, and they still had a lot of, I mean, not as bad as old stuff, but they still had a lot of mold lines. Like it wasn't like you were completely avoiding that problem, but
for sure. Yeah. Like I do feel like they've gotten better over the years, obviously.
Better, yeah.
They've gotten much better. And in some cases, you can't see mold lines because of the way, like that newer Age of Sigmar Great Unclean One kit. They do a really good job at hiding mold lines with like folds of fat that then connect kind of underneath each other. So it's nice that they're considering that a lot more. And you're right, it is like they designed the Primaris Marines to be painted. It's not just, look, this is a little squat Space Marine, how cool. It's like posed in such a way and made in such a way that like it takes to paint really well. Like you were talking about the knee pads, how they have that little kind of like curved lip on top of that.
Yeah, like, which the Tactical Marines did not have. The Tactical Marines just had like a kneecap. Or some of them had like weird greaves, but the Primaris have their, it's a knee pad, and then on top of that, it's a ridge. That's a very obvious ridge where you can highlight one of its corners or two of its corners, and it's up to you. But it's like, if you want to learn to edge highlight and you think that light would be hitting this far down on the leg underneath where he's holding the bolter, then edge highlight this.
Yeah, and I do like that. I appreciate the consideration. Yeah.
And it was just one of those things, like when you figure out a good paint scheme or like a paint plan, I guess you could say, that you're happy with. That's a good feeling. And in this case, it was a project where I really liked the Payne's Gray ink from underneath. I thought that gave a good shadowed look and some fun transitions. I think that'll work with most color armor also. Pretty much, that little bit of blue in the black, it just makes the shadows way more interesting. Yeah. And it really does fit, Yeah, and it's an ink, so it sprays really smooth, and you can, very little splatter the way you might get with a thin down paint sometimes. Yeah. Or at least you'd have to like work to avoid with a thin down paint. Yeah. And then just the process of blacklining really, really brought some stuff out pretty well in those models. So yeah, that's something I might do more of in the future. This batch I'm going to finish up in the next day or two and send off, and then check out Nova Open Charity Foundation raffle for the raffle that begins July 1st. Yeah, we'll putting those links in the show notes as they come up. Nice. Yeah. I got you, Brent. Don't worry about it. All right, I think we did it. Yeah, that's what we did. Okay, is the episode over yet? No, we should have we should do an episode now. What are we talking about today, Casey? All right, yeah, we almost forgot to just hit record, and we were just having conversation. So I do have some questions from... Hold on, let me check to make sure I'm recording. All right, yeah, that would be terrible. We got them. We're good. Oh, good. Well, don't worry, I'm going to cut that first Casey. 45 minutes out, so... All right, so if you're joining us now, this is the start of this episode. We're going to talk about some things. No, I'm just kidding. What do we got? We got some questions from the audience over at the YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Paint Bravely, the podcast. Just leave us a comment, subscribe, like, all the fun stuff. We try and go through comments. We want to answer as many as we can because we don't tend to get over there as often as we probably should to just directly answer questions. And we do all right, It's not like we're leaving everybody hanging. But we want to talk about it on the podcast too. So we're just going to go through a few of them and, see what happens. So the first question is from TA. And the question is, do you find that as fairly established painters, do you find inspiration from quote-unquote newbie painters? Why or why not? What are the things, if any, that more adept painters can take away from new painters? What are your thoughts, Brent? Oh, you're asking me? I read the question. Okay. Yeah, is that how it works? Okay. I can answer it, but we're doing this podcast together. All right. It's a conversation. Okay. Yes. So there's probably a few examples I could drop here, but let me give you this one. So, going over to a friend's house to play a game of Warhammer. and somehow he got his stepkid like really interested in 40K. And I'm not familiar with the family politics, but this child had just gotten a Land Raider Crusader or something, like a sweet tank. And me and my friend are setting up to play, and this kid is, he's assembling his model, and it's like we're on bottom of turn 1 and this model is assembled. And and then like by the end of turn 2, it's been spray painted red. And somewhere between turn 3 and 4, it comes back. He's got black and silver slapped on a few places, and I'm done. Look at this. And excitement. Like so obviously the paint job, there was room for improvement. The assembly could have been a little bit better. But
it was a done painted model.
It was a done and painted model, and this newbie was happier than I've been in a long time. Like,
right.
But yeah, there's a couple things going on there. Anytime something is that fresh and new and exciting, that's an awesome feeling. And so just the enthusiasm there is something to take inspiration from, because at some point we all felt like that, getting our first model.
Oh, yeah.
And the rest of that is because they are a noob and they don't know how much they don't know. They're not second guessing everything. They're not worried about letting their spray paint dry before they start slapping black on the bolters. Like they're just going for it. There's fingerprints in the spray paint. What about it?
What about it? Yeah. What are you looking at it under a friggin' microscope? Come on, you're playing a game.
Yeah, like for us who have watched hundreds of tutorial videos and heard about there being multiple ways to apply decals and multiple problems that can go wrong with your oil washes if that's how you choose to do your black lining for the armor panels. Like, at a certain point, that experience and that knowledge gets you to like be second guessing and everything. And and like before you jump in and do something with your hobby, you're like, okay, do I really want to use a decal here? Or I could get out my airbrush and try to spray this on. Should I make should I do that out of painter's tape? Or, there's so many obstacles or like hard decisions that come as a result of knowing too much. If you don't do anything, you get out you have a big paintbrush and you have a small paintbrush and you have 10 bottles of paint. Like,
yeah. When your selections are limited, when your supplies are limited, you're not thinking about all the things that you don't have, especially when you start out. So, you put the colors down, you do the things that you know how to do, and the model's done. And like, sure, it might not look like the box art, but that's pretty easily dismissed considering, that you're new and whoever painted that has been painting forever, and it is what it is. Like, it's an advertisement, at least most people look at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
There's another interesting thing that happens when you're new, right? So you start at a specific level when you're new, and there's the amount of knowledge that you have, and the time that you've been painting and what you can do with those things. So because you don't know where the limitations are, you're going to try things that maybe you shouldn't try, or maybe you should and you just didn't know it, and it works out and things happen and you get really good results. I don't know if you've ever experienced this and been aware of it, but you start to learn more, and your skill, while technically increasing, like, your adventurousness starts to decrease, and you start to become you start to second guess yourself more, like you were saying.
Yeah, sure.
And you kind of hit this peak where you're kind of just at the bottom of the barrel, like always trying to figure out what to do, not exactly knowing how to accomplish something, but you know all these things and it's confusing you. And then there's that breakthrough where now you know what you're doing and you're building your skill, but it's almost like you're starting over again. and you have to like build yourself back up to where you even just started when you were new. So it's this kind of like upside down bell curve, right? Of like experience and knowledge and willingness to do certain things.
Yeah.
So like a new painter that isn't afraid.
That's a big one.
Screw it up.
Yeah, that's a really big one. Yeah.
It can produce some amazing results and not even understand why.
Yeah.
But it's because they weren't afraid to try it. Where, yeah, you're a couple years in and you're just like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to screw it up.
Yeah.
So you just don't. You just don't bother anymore. And then once you're on the other side of that, it's like, I'm going to try that because I might screw it up, but I know how to fix it, is the other side of that, like, kind of learning curve, I guess.
Yep. So you just reminded me of a few years ago, little cousin was over for Christmas, and this was the year that I was spending a lot of time learning the layering techniques on Seraphon shields.
Sure.
So I had, there was a Christmas break where I was figuring out how to highlight Seraphon shields, and that ended up being a whole YouTube video. But anyway, like, aunt and uncle and little cousins were all in the family house there. Everyone was back from wherever we'd been all together. And, I was visiting my parents, and I had taken a box of paints, and I had taken a box of models, and we were all at my folks' house. And my cousins wanted to hang out with me, and like, well, I'm going to be sitting here painting models, so, hang around and do your Instagram or whatever it is you do. And so then, this teenage girl, like, eventually I talked her into picking up a paintbrush and painting a skink. And what she did with it, so this is a person who no interest in Warhammer or D&D or models, or I really don't think she cares much about art either, but handed her a paintbrush, and I was like, here's my paints, go for it. And she ended up painting a rainbow skink, like, just I mean, it was kind of like she was wet blending, basically. She was just slapping the colors on top of each other. And again, no idea what she's doing, but that also means no limitations, nothing telling her not to try something. And I mean, it didn't end up being my cup of tea, but it didn't look terrible. It was a cool idea, and from the minds of newbies, like,
right, like, you jump right into that. She's wet blending with a bunch of paints, right? Yeah. It's like, now when we go to do that, you got to sit there and think about it. You're like, okay,
wet blending is an advanced technique.
Right,
and
like, I'm going to do this thing.
I have not learned my advanced techniques yet, and I need to study this before I can master the brush.
Exactly.
Need to watch some of these masterclass videos here before I can attempt to two brush, wet blend, load brush.
Blending, load. Yeah, exactly. Brush voiding.
Yeah, and all this girl's just sitting there wet blending. You're like, this is stupid. Here's your stupid skink. Like,
right. Stupid lizard.
Yeah.
Where'd you say they're from, Brent? Space? Idiot.
Yeah. Well, now they are, but don't worry about it.
Right. Don't worry about it. Oh. In your last video I watched, you straight up just pulled out the Seraphon. I thought you were going to stop the video right there. You're like, I'm painting all these. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah, going through my pile of shame, looking for something to paint. Like, once I pulled out either the orcs or the snotlings or the Seraphon, the video could have just stopped. I'm like, okay, I'm done looking through my pile of shame. I'm just going to paint these now. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I was also thinking about, what do new painters, and so we were just talking about, like, really new painters. And so let me tell you my experience as a really new painter. When I first took home models, I mean, I made a video about, the first model that I ever painted, and that was actually a lie. That was the second model I ever painted. It was the Dark Eldar Red Warrior. Now, the first model I ever painted, if we're being honest here, I stripped it, and I'm sorry. But it was at the same time that I got my Dark Eldar Warriors, I got one Dark Eldar jet bike. And because at the time they weren't sold in a box of 3 for $50. They were sold in a box of 1 for $13, 20 years ago. So, and for me at 12 or 13 or whatever, a $13 model was a lot of money. So I had, my box of 20 Dark Eldar Warriors, and I had my one jet bike, and I had never painted before, and I was really excited. And so where I'm going with this is the first model I painted was not a cheaper Dark Eldar Warrior. The first model I painted was that jet bike. It was, there was no hesitation there. There's no like, my skills aren't there yet, I'm going to mess this up. It was just
a model that needed paint.
There wasn't even like, this is my most expensive thing, I should practice on something else. It was, this is the coolest thing I have. I am so excited about this.
Right.
I mean, I don't clearly remember the evening or anything, but I don't think there was a lot of deliberation there. I think it was just tearing into the coolest thing and like super gluing it together poorly and then slapping some paint on top of it.
Yeah.
And then the second through 21st models I painted were the Dark Eldar from the Warrior box, but yeah.
Now, if you could get yourself into that same mindset and try and paint something, just like picking a model, whatever feels right to you, just like that video you just did, right? Like, can you also put yourself into a place where you're just like, I'm going to paint this however I feel and do whatever I think is necessary? Like, how is that paint job going to be, rather than overanalyzing and second guessing?
Well, so that's where it comes in, like taking inspiration from newer painters, but I think it is really hard to put yourself in that mindset of really no inhibitions, forget what you know, just go at it. I think that's really hard, but so Casey's referring to a video that put out at the time of this recording is going through my pile of shame with the idea of screw all my plans, forget any obligations for painting I think I need to do, forget, the list of models I feel like I want or need to paint. I'm just going to look through my collection and find something that is calling to me, and really go off of that enthusiasm and see how far that enthusiasm can carry you in a paint job. Partially just for mental well-being of not having painting feel like a chore and having it be like, somewhere in your collection you have a model that you want to paint, and some of us do things like, that's going to be a treat for me, like I'm going to paint that librarian that I really want to paint after I paint these Terminators that I don't want to paint. It's like, well, right now you want to paint that librarian, why don't you just paint that librarian, because there's something that you want to do and you could do it. And after you do it, you'll have a painted librarian, and you'll probably be happy with that. And maybe by that time, you'll want to paint Terminators, So I did the exercise of like, let's just look at my collection, kind of like a newbie, say which of these models looks the coolest to me right now. Forget the armies that I need to build. Forget these 30 Space Marines that I need to send off for a raffle. Like forget all that. I'm going to cancel all my commissions and not take any more. I'm just going to paint what I want to paint. And I picked a model, and I spent a couple hours working on it, and I got my paint scheme. It still needs a little more work to make it look good, but
and I'm excited to see that model.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be pretty cool.
That was a good question. I was actually not expecting it to go for that long. But we have more. We have more questions.
On the other side of that coin, there's nothing to be learned from newbies. They don't know what they're doing.
Right.
Get out of here with your question. Yeah.
Obviously, we're not those people. I mean,
yeah,
you can learn something from everybody in almost anything, People come at things with different perspectives. So, of course, you're going to be able to learn something from someone.
Yeah. And also the ability just to appreciate, what you've painted at any skill level. Like even if it has a coat of paint on it and you're proud that you put it there, like, yeah, be happy with it. Stop looking at Instagram with your...
Yeah.
Yeah. With your...
so the next question comes from just P. That's what we're going to go with.
All right. So because Meat Popsicle ruined everything and we decided to use initials for people, we've been using initials. So our last question came from TA?
Mm-hmm.
This next question comes from one of the viewers I've gotten to know a little bit and I like, but since we're doing this system, the name is PP. And Meat Popsicle, I blame you for this. I blame you for most things, but
just keeps coming back to bite us.
Yeah, we've been using initials so we don't out anybody and so we don't read something stupid on the air, but now I'm reading a real name and the initials are PP. So, all right, PP asks, so I draw too, and I often do warm-up drawings to get any jitters and any extra wonky lines out of my system before I focus on precise stuff. Is this a thing that any of you do? Do you ever just do some brush strokes and maybe some blending tests on another surface before you start on an actual model?
Now, we talked about this a little bit before and decided pretty much this is something that we both should be doing.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's real smart, Yeah, I don't tend to do warm-ups at all. I just kind of go for it. Like, and again, it's probably one of those things where maybe down that curve a little further, I'll get to that point where I'm actually going to think about it before I start doing something just to save myself trouble in the future. And yeah, like do a little wet blend, do a little something over here, test out. Now I do test my brush like on the back of my hand or something, or I have construction paper. So I'll, make sure the point is good on that. The tip is good. But that's all I do. So this is just good advice in general. You should probably warm up a little. Just like anything. Like you warm up before you play a basketball game. You do some stretches.
Yeah.
Run around the court a little bit. So why wouldn't you do that for painting? It's like it's, smaller muscles, but same kind of thing.
Yeah. So, I think old PP here is coming at this from, the side of art as a hobby, and the mini side of things is much newer to her. But this is a really great question. And that's, sometimes when you're coming at this artistic mini painting from video games or wherever you happen to be coming at it from for D&D or Warhammer or whatever, sometimes you just miss the really basic, obvious art stuff. And I do have my bag of white primed Dark Eldar warriors that are all busted up, and if I am testing out maybe like a dry brush, or if I am like running a test, I'll use them. Testing out a different paint or brush or something. But the idea of just having like a half, even like a half finished model on your table or something, where just before you start on the thing you really care about, you just put a few extra strokes on, I don't know, Bob the Orc, and give Bob an Orc a tattoo before you get started on whatever your actual progress of the day is. Yeah.
Just get yourself acclimated to whatever it is you're going to be doing. Just do a quick little test, little warm up. That it just makes so much sense.
Are we actually going to do it though, stupid. Casey? Like we just said that's a great idea and we should do that. I'm just thinking about it. Like, am I actually really going to do that? Casey, do it.
I honestly don't know if, okay, hands up. No, I will. I will grab a model and I will make sure that is my test model.
Are you going to tell me about this model next week?
Okay.
Oh, you just grabbed a model.
I just grabbed, just blindly. Okay, it's a Khorne Berserker. And this was a test model. It's got red and black all over it. I'm going to put that right here. That is my That's what I'm going to do. That's my warm-up model. I'm going to put this into effect right now. We're going to see how this goes.
I am stunned silent like that. Your dedication amazes me. I need to search through my my pile here to find a model to do the same. And you
got boxes right behind you. I see them.
I got boxes behind me. Yeah.
You just grab one. I just grabbed one. This Corn Berserker means nothing to me now.
I also have Corn Berserkers.
Seems like a good.
I also have 3D printers though, so actually that's probably a better idea. I have so many 3D prints that are like,
yeah.
I have a lot that are just slightly malformed, like they're missing a finger or something. I got a lot of those, right. So I think that's a good feed for this.
Well, the reason that I'm thinking about this as to actually try and take this seriously is because, and I'm sure a lot of people have experienced this, when you're batch painting, like say you got 10 models in front of you, more often than not, your 10th model looks better than your first model, which means that you warming up and practicing a little bit actually makes a difference.
Yeah.
I mean, and it totally makes sense. You know, you're just more comfortable after having warmed up.
That's true. That's an interesting way to look at it. I mean, in some ways we're warming up on everything that we do.
Yeah.
Also, the kind of speed I tend to work at, and the final level where I tend to take my minis of not too high, of like look nice but not doing freehand fire tattoos, or I don't know. They're not
right.
Not drawing intricate banners and stuff on things. I don't need to warm up too much to slap a coat of green on orc skin. Like there's a lot of the stuff we do, I would argue, don't require a warm up.
You
know,
yeah, I think when it's a basic, like when you're going that step-by-step route, you're going base coat, wash, highlight.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a little more straightforward. But and there isn't like a lot of technique in there other than, you know, making sure your paints are thin and, you know, your wash doesn't pool in weird places and all that. But I mean, even doing something like edge highlighting, right? Like you might need to make sure that the paint you're using, because it changes every time, is actually, you know, diluted at the proper amount, and you have the proper amount on your brush as to not get stupid little fat lines everywhere.
Right. And a lot of people, that's what a thumb is for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting idea of just having a Corn Warrior there where you can just do one shoulder pad or wherever they have their armor strapped to them and give that a shot.
Yeah.
Highlight their weird axe thing and be like, okay, good enough. Let's get on with the real business here.
This really just makes me think that they really need to update Corn Berserkers. Like,
is this a 40K Corn Berserker?
Yeah.
I was thinking of the original Age of Sigmar starter box. What were they called? Blood Warriors or something? I don't know.
Blood Warriors, yeah.
That was one of them.
Yeah, no, this is so like I've got my recording camera for the podcast. This is pointed directly at that camera. So everyone else can see this. You can't really see this. Brent's camera is all the way over here.
And anyone listening on their cell phones also can't see this, but Casey is talking about a 40K Corn Berserker. He's a small boy, and he means nothing to Casey. Casey probably got him cheap off of eBay, as he does.
Actually, I bought this box brand new.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I apologize.
I was getting back into Warhammer. This is like when I actually was getting back into it. And I bought a box of Corn Berserkers and a handful of paints, went camping for like 3 weeks, and painted a bunch of them up. And there were a handful left. This is one of them. I haven't used them for anything. I just wanted to paint Corn Berserkers.
Yeah, quite a history. Yeah. I think we crushed that one. Let me read you this next one too. All right. From lowercase t, we got... I think Adam Savage's Tested Workshop is the 10 out of 10 workspace.
I would agree.
Yeah, no bling, no glam, just every tool you could think of and the proper storage required.
That's true. So Adam Savage, if you don't know who that is, he's one of the Mythbusters from the Discovery Channel show. He has a YouTube channel called Adam Savage's Tested. And he does all sorts of stuff in his workshop. He does like one-day builds, or, he'll make props. He's painted models occasionally. There's a lot of other stuff on the channel. I prefer the ones with just him specifically doing different projects. But his workshop is pretty amazing. Like, he builds things to organize things, and he will take time to make sure that they're actually functional. And so his entire workshop has, it's huge. It's like the size of a house. It's a warehouse. And it's filled with every kind of material you can think of, and for any kind of project you could ever possibly want to do. It's like he wanted to paint a resin model, and he's like, oh, let me go grab all my airbrushing and miniature paints and all this stuff and just bust out all this stuff. And it's like, no, okay, you've got way more stuff than even I have, and it's insane. And he just goes through all the stuff, and it's a really nice space. Now, 10 out of 10 was our douchebag level of like, you're just overdoing it. But I don't know, maybe there should be a separate 10 out of 10 of just like, you're overdoing 10 out of 10. Yeah. Because you're actually so awesome that it just is the best thing ever. And I would definitely put that in that category. Yeah, it's a good workspace.
Yeah.
So Brent, like, do you know who Adam Savage is? You know what I'm talking about? This sweet space?
Only or have you ever vaguely watched? I really don't know what you're talking about.
Oh. In that case, thank you again for joining us on another episode of Paint Bravely. If you enjoyed this podcast, please help us out by leaving us a review on iTunes, subscribing to the YouTube channel, and sharing this message with your hobby friends. And as always, we appreciate each and every one of you for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
Talk to you next time.